Hello, future designers and developers, and welcome back. This is our third part of our tutorial. In the last two, we have created all the HTML, and the last one we created the setTip function, which allows us to click on the 10, 15, 20, 25, and set this variable right here, tip percent, to 10%, 15, 20, or 25. We also did a cool for loop that allows us to take off the active class from all of our buttons and only apply it to one at a time. Cool. So now the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to be able to take the values of our bill total, our number of people, and then use that to calculate our total per person and then our total, or the tip per person. So we'll be able to see all of that. The total is going to include the tip inside of it, and the tip is just going to be the tip amount. So that'll be it. Cool. So let's go down over here, and we are going to be starting a new function. And this function we are going to call calculate tip. Calculate tip. Cool. We're not taking any arguments inside of this. We're just going to have that open over here. Cool. So the things that we need to set up, we need to declare the inputs from users as JS variables. Cool. So those inputs are our bill total, our number of people. That's what we need. So let's go and call out constant. We are going to grab our bill total, which should be equal to our document dot get element by ID. And the ID that I set for this was, in fact, bill total. Cool. So we've got our bill total, but when we place this in here, we are just getting the HTML, so we actually want to get the value that is typed inside of this. So we are going to say dot value. So there we go. Now we have the value of that. And let's just check that out. We're going to calculate a couple other things first before we double check to make sure it's working. So we're going to do constant. Let's call this num people, PPL. That's going to be equal to our document dot get element by ID, and the ID that I used for this one I don't quite recall. What was that? Number people, kind of like a letter people. I don't know if any of y'all remember letter people. That was something my grandma would make me watch. It was kind of scary. Anyways, get element by ID, num people. Again, we do not want the actual input element itself. We just want the value of it. So we're going to say dot value. Cool. So now we've got the value. All right. Now we also need to get the locations where we're going to display our end results. So we want this 0, 0 and this 0, 0, because this is where our total is going to go, and this is where our tip is going to go. So we need both of those. So we're going to say constant. We're going to call this our tip display, and that is going to be equal to document dot get element by ID. I believe I gave it an ID. Let's check where that is at. And so we've got ID total output and tip output. So tip display, that get element by ID, that is going to be our tip output. Cool. And this one we don't need the value, we are just getting the actual element itself, and we're going to be able to set that to a certain value. Cool. And then we're going to say constant, our total display is equal to document dot get element by ID, and that is going to be our total output. Cool. So those are right here, tip output, total output, did them in reverse order, doesn't really matter. But those are gonna be the things that we're going to update with our calculations inside of here. So we've got this all worked out. Now what we need to do is we want to actually calculate our tip. So let's say constant tip, and tip is going to be equal to our bill total, which is what we call this value. So I'm going to throw this in parentheses because we're going to have our order of operations. Want to make sure everything goes right. So we're going to say bill total times our tip percent. And our tip percent, you're going to notice pops up yellow right here, and that's because this is a global variable. We set it inside of this if statement where we've got different tip percents throughout here. So we're going to say our bill total multiplied by our tip percent, which should give us what we have as a tip, and then we're going to say divided by the number of people, so num people. Cool. So that is our tip. All right, now let's also get our constant. We're going to call out total. Total is going to be equal to our bill total times our tip percent, and then we want to make sure this is all in the order of operations the way that we want. So we've got bill total multiplied by the tip percent. That's going to give us the actual tip, and then we want to add that to our total. I'm sorry, not our total, our bill total. Because let's say that our bill total is 400, we're going to have 400 here, so it's 400 times our tip plus 400, so we get that back. We already have the tip, so we could do constant, but this is, we want to divide this by number of people too, so we're gonna do that later. Cool. And then after we have all this, we want to divide this entire thing by num people. So I'm going to throw everything into another bracket and then divide by our number of people. Cool. All right, so now we've got our tip and our total over here all worked out. Sweet. Now we actually want to format these. We want to format these because right now they're just numbers, and we want to have a dollar sign in front of them so that when we display it as inner text, it's this over here. Cool. All right. So let's call out constant. We're going to do tip formatted is going to be equal to, and we are just going to throw in some backticks, dollar sign, plus we're going to grab our tip, but we want to make sure that we're rounding to our second decimal number. So we're going to say tip dot to fixed, and we are going to fix to the second digit. So this right here is going to actually convert our tip from a number into a string, and then make sure that there are only 2 spots after our decimal place. So that's what to fix does. It's very useful because it does do that conversion to a string. All right, then we're also going to do constant. We're going to do total formatted, and that is going to be equal to, again, we're going to throw in the dollar sign, and that's going to be plus. This one is our total dot to fixed. This is 2. All right, cool. Now that we have these formatted tip totals and total, yeah, tip and total, we are going to set them as our inner HTML for these guys right here, our tip display and our total display. So let's say tip display is going to be equal to, or not, sorry, our tip display dot inner text is going to be equal to our tip formatted. Cool. And then we also have our total display dot inner text is equal to our total formatted. Cool. So we have this function here, but we also have not yet created an event listener that will have this get caught. So we need to do that. So we're going to go right up here, and we're going to first declare our calc button as a JS variable. Cool. So we want to go constant. We want to grab this calculate tip button, which if we look over here, that has a class of calculate. So let's do that using our query selector. So constant, I'm going to call this calc button is equal to our document dot get, or not, I just said we're going to use query selector, and that is dot calculate. Right? That's what I gave the class of calculate. Yes. Cool. So now we've got that button over here. Now we can take that button and we are going to add event listener to calc button. All right. So we're going to grab out calc button dot add event listener, and the event that we're listening for is a click on, or just click on the button. Make sure that this is capital BTN, and we are going to run the function calculate tip. Cool. All right. Let's see if that is now working. We've got that all formatted, fixed out. All right, so let's say our total is $400 and we want to tip 20%. We've got 3 people. Calculate the tip. We're getting an error. Let's see. Cannot read property of value reading null. Okay. That right here. Dot value. Let's double check, make sure that my ID is right. So we're gonna go over here. Total bill. Did I do bill total? I did. I had them swapped. Total bill. Cool. Let's try this again. 400, 20%, 3 people. Calculate tip. Look at this total per person. We've got $26,800. Well, that doesn't seem right, but the tip seems right. So let's take a look at our total per person. There is something going on here. So we want our bill total times the tip percentage. That we get whatever that is. Then we've got to add in our bill total, and then we divide by our number of people. That seems about right. Let's really parentheses this up just to make sure. Well, we already have our whole numerator up here. It's not just adding numbers together, right? All right, let's do something real easy. 400 at 10% and 1 person. Yeah, look it's just taken 40 to 400. So 400 would be our total, 40 is our tip, which is 10%, and it should be adding those together. But instead, we're just adding them together like they're strings, which is not right. We shouldn't be doing that. So let's see. Let's make sure that we set these to integers. So I'm going to take this bill total right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to force it to be an integer, because right now they're adding together like strings. So I'm going to start with a parse int, and I'm going to set that around my bill total. Cool. We're going to mess up our brackets, and I'm also going to do that around this one too. So parse int, we got that around bill total. All right, let's try it now. 400, 10%, one person, calculate tip, 440. There we go. That was it. Apparently it was reading this as a string value, which is weird because it's not doing that for the tip. Huh. That's interesting. But we are able to force a parse int onto both of these and run calculate the tip. So this is all working now. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please reach out. Talk to you later. Bye.